SoundCloud. What had happened right before I pressed record was the statement like classical music perfection is playing what's on the page perfectly, and jazz is playing something that's never been heard before, which I'm pushing against, not because it's not true. In both modes, everything that you have played is something no one has ever heard about, but there's like a couple layers of really the peak jazz experience, as I think spun up by appreciators of jazz. This is a very big inside outside experience, is being in the audience, being aware of hearing nothing you've ever heard before, which really is generating a feeling you've never felt before, and being aware that the person on stage is aware that they're doing that. That's what people want out of jazz. Here's the scary fucking thing about playing jazz. You have no awareness whatsoever of any fucking thing that's going on.
You have to forget about the audience.
Yeah,
it's
you don't know
sort of like sports or like
you barely know your
certain
fucking
sports.
name.
Yeah. It's almost like with writing. It's like when you disappear, right? Even like right now, when I disappear, all of a sudden cool stuff can happen because I'm not so self-conscious, right? And I feel like you and I are competing in a time and in an arena of online creators that are so self-conscious. There's their whole mission in life is to be super self-conscious on screen and be good and say the right things. But I think it's actually genius, and what's actually going to survive and what's going to succeed is if you can forget the game. Like if you can have no doubt that you are an exception and that you're supposed to be exceptional, you're supposed to be different from what could be defined. Lately, I've been bumping into people who hate that they can't define me and that I shatter their categories, and they get so pissed.
They hate that they can't define you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they want to be above the game and kind of ordering it, but I am this big cloud of smoke that you can't put a divide anywhere, because I like Kierkegaard. He said, what defines me negates me.
Yes.
And there's also a good line, a guy named Lawrence Stern says, to define is to distrust.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy it. Yeah, well, it's the packaging problem, which I'm in the middle of solving, which is fine. Basically, like, the quicker I just allow myself to be the like noble trickster, ethical hacker, the better my days are gonna be. Because I know this, like the idea of being like, I'm gonna put this thing in a box, it's like great. And I'm gonna put some stuff on this box. Great. Stuff very specifically you told me that you liked and that I know is gonna hook your attention. Fantastic. Now I need you to forget that. Easy. Easiest thing in the fucking world. I do it every fucking second. Great. Now here's this box. Oh my god, this box fucking amazing. Oh my god, thank you so much for putting this in this way. Holy crap. Now you open the box. What's this? Sorry, you already purchased the box. I couldn't just give you the thing, because if you got the thing, you'd run away from it like you're doing right now, but I already have your money, so bye. Also, this thing as well.
Yeah. I mean, that reminds me of the distinction between fiction and nonfiction. It's less about did this really happen, and it's more about the expectations the reader has, right? A reader need not be so threatened reading a fiction book because it's not real. But if you're reading a nonfiction book, you are immersed in the world that can kill you. Nonfiction is about the world around you. Fiction is a break from the world around you.
Alleged. Sorry. You're speaking to someone who is very specifically taking crowbar.
Crowbar?
Yes, I'm taking a crowbar to the fourth wall. I was watching Avengers Endgame last night because I like to hurt my own feelings and I need to meet my inner Tony Stark and watch him die on screen in like the most. Back in April, I guess that would have been 2019, I went to see Avengers Endgame with my dear friend Liz, who I'm contractually obligated to say is great, while she was pregnant with her now child, who I am their Uncle Wendell. And I went there to kind of like tilt the pinball machine to be like, if I show up a little early, maybe this baby will come out early and I can meet, because this is the only time that I have. I'm not going to come out to Portland for Endgame and for the baby. I'll come out for Endgame and then maybe I'll see a baby. Didn't see the baby, but as we're watching that movie, and sorry if there's spoilers, this movie's been out for 4 years.
Yeah.
There's a moment Tony Stark dies in pretty much classic. Okay, is hero with the heart of gold? Is Tony Stark a bad guy who turns good? Is he a morally gray person who just figures it out? No, very clearly he is a morally gray person who becomes good and then learns the actual cost of goodness, which is self-sacrifice.
Hmm.
And he's been trying to fake self-sacrifice himself the whole series, which is really just kill himself. He couldn't tell the difference between self-destructive, I want to destroy myself, and I'm actually sacrificing for the greater good. And
Hmm.
Game does a really good job of making it's like, no, no, no. This is
Okay.
very obviously he's taken one for the team for the first time. It's not about his like savior complex ego, which is a hard one to like suss out.
Pulling up a quote.
He died.
Self-forgetfulness. Yes.
He
So you
died, and then he has recorded before the fight a wry message to his daughter, like, I've been thinking about this, and there's a very good chance that like we're not all gonna make it out of here. So I record this message. But even as you're listening to record it, it's like he doesn't really believe he's gonna fucking die. He wouldn't be this snarky
hmm,
otherwise. Or maybe he is this snarky. Who knows?
hmm,
We're in the movie theater. It's April 27th, 2019, watching it. And it is a dramatic moment. We have just watched Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark die, end of an era. The movie is silent. The theater is silent in the most perfect mode, except for three fucking nerds dying laughing. We're all dying laughing. This is me, my friend, and her husband, Rob, who's also my friend, secret boyfriend, Rob, dying laughing. And we can't stop, and it's uncontrollable. And we all know why we're laughing, but we didn't say anything about it because we're in a movie theater. We were trying to be polite and not say anything, except for that we all caught the joke at the same time, which is the unspoken joke was absolutely 100% I would do this to all of my friends. I would absolutely have written like arcane instructions on the day of my passing. And now you all like, there are people on this planet who are like, I really would rather this person not die because the things he's going to leave in his hideous will are going to ruin all of our lives. Not just the absence. That's, that's sad. We can all deal with that. But he's 100% going to trap us in some hideous matrix reality. And we just all knew at one time that the thing we were seeing on the screen 100% not just was real, but that like for them to have written this, other people like me exist in the world to make
hmm,
this truth in the fiction came from a human response. It is only funny. It is only affecting because it happened somewhere. And that
hmm.
truly exists. The like eccentric billionaire dies and leaves the Weston game is about that. Like there's a lot of tropes like that, but we've never seen it in a superhero movie because
Hmm,
there's something about superheroes that have always taken themselves self seriously in this way that like
hmm,
Tony Stark has always dance hopscotched around like simultaneously probably the most neurotic most fearful character in the whole saga and also the
hmm,
snarkiest throwing names meet someone in a heartbeat and doesn't even ask their name has already given them a pop culture coded name and
hmm,
space alien and he doesn't give a fuck.
hmm.
The sacrifice of a character like that and the still commitment to the bit of just like is any of this real or serious that like
Well,
Ed that fiction gives us, I think, is really, I think, important.
well, yeah, and I want to pull that to the nonfiction arena. I mean, I like this thing you said of the cost of goodness being self-sacrifice. Reminded me of this line from John Cage, the composer, in
But made the 7 minutes of silence.
yeah. Um, so he's talking about the empty studio to another painter, Philip Guston. He says, when you start working, everybody is in your studio. The past, your friends, enemies, the art world, and above all, your own ideas, all are there. But as you continue painting, they start leaving one by one, and you are left completely alone. Then, if you're lucky, even you leave. And to me, that's the stepping forth into annihilation, divinity, self-trust, genius, being indefatigable, another favorite word of mine. When you know you can't make a mistake. I think that's that Miles Davis zone, where it's not that everything you do is perfect, but study and practice has become such a component part of your existence that you have that alchemical power, that wizard power to transform a wrong note into a right one based on what happens next. And kind of being the master of ceremonies in a way that you have such command of the clay as a sculptor being above the scene while also in the scene. You sort of got two floating eyeballs at once. Miles Davis has this really good interview where he talks about being a Gemini. You've got two self-consciousnesses. You've got two of them. And I sort of like the idea of you've got one in your body and one like a floating camera above. And then you're almost like the offensive coordinator and the quarterback on the field at the same time.
It's a hideous prank. My brain, of course, is just like, well, who the hell's watching that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you are too. Like you're the viewer and the player.
No, I mean,
And they
like, we're talking about two viewers watching the little you. Even to have those two
okay.
points, there's now a separate one. It's like, who's that guy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's always another guy, right?
Well, not even, the point is not there. There's always another guy, but like you can evaluate, like, okay, those are also creations at a certain point, which is like, okay, what floating camera robot do I want looking at me? Do I want it to be my mom? Do I want it to be the preacher? Do I want it to be Earl or what have you? Who do I want inside of me looking at me? Is it that
Ooh.
strong
Who do I
will?
want inside of me looking at me? Well, I think this is where the idea of God comes from, is like we want so much to have someone to witness us, right? I mean, this gets right into the hilarity and absurdity of Substack and the whole creator economy and being a thought boy and being a thread boy and just like putting yourself out there on the internet is like you so badly want a viewer. I mean, it goes back to that quote. Jensen is his name. I'm not sure his full name. What Orwell failed to predict was that we'd buy the cameras ourselves, and our only fear would be that nobody was watching.
Yeah, well, that's why. Well, I love a dystopia. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And yes, when I want to feel very self-serious, I'm all Orwell. Huxley won big. Huxley won so big. Like if there was like a Thriller in Manila of which British post 50s Orwell dystopian vision is gonna work. And it's like we're literally talking about one on one of them. We are using a Huxleyan dystopia to talk about how much Huxley won. Not one, but was more correct. Okay. I don't want to be in the skies anymore, but I do want to honor the sort of mythopoetic thing that we're spinning up. So I'm going to do both at the same time.
Okay.
I have very strong reason to believe that the next emergent wave of consciousness is business as art, which means business is going to have all of these highfalutin problems, which feels rude to business to a degree. It was the least self-conscious craft. It just said get money, and now it's like, well, if you're gonna evolve, you're gonna have the same problems that made fucking Hemingway kill himself, and you're now gonna have the same problems that made all jazz musicians addicted to heroin. Like, and there's a lot of ways in which all the critiques of people in business and capitalism is like, nah, you're just as mad as Miles Davis's ex-wives are. Like you actually stumbled upon people doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing right now. And just that you're just a little too close to the consequences. Like you can only appreciate the art in the audience, but like the way that business capitalism attracting value permeates, it's very difficult to find like the comfortable audience seat.
I mean, I think it's never been easier. You just have to have good taste, right? I mean, I've tuned the internet, and I mean, it's not even about the internet now. So it's mostly about just like my friends, right? I've created and found and tuned into who the people are who I want to go through life with, right? You're one of those people for sure, and it's like
Honored.
I just have this ongoing kiln and soup of these conversations and like back and forths. And it's amazing to move to a new place like Austin. For those listening, I moved to Austin, Texas in March, sort of on a whim. And like to be able to go eat barbecue or go to a music venue or go walk down by the river, see a piece of art, all of a sudden I've got people I can share that with and people that want to follow that story, right? So all of a sudden it's like the audience creates the discovery. Because I have an audience to share with, that is what fuels my discovery, because now I have somewhere to go tell the story too of what I find.
Yes. Wait, I gotta get some cards. I've been having this conversation a few times. It's almost like it's almost a full bit. It's being workshopped.
Okay. Da 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 da. Whoa, whoa.
Oh. The first game, the one that matters, everyone know a little game by the name of Magic the Gathering?
Mm-hmm.
Boom. So a few days ago, I decided to get over myself and was like, well, Magic the Gathering exists. It's fun. If I can find a way to get that feeling of playing Magic the Gathering, but help people like figure out their stupid emotions, then I can play Magic the Gathering and get my stupid emotions sorted out. Very conveniently, there are 5 colors in Magic. You know, you got your red, that blue, you got green, you got black, and you got white. And I've been working on sort of an emotional alchemy thing. Basically, like I made the case, and again, this is where the fiction and the reality leave. I invite people into this, viewers, Geoff, my own self when I'm feeling cynical, to I think I've built a world large enough that like Harry Potter style, you can hold this like weird world building thing without needing it to be true. I think it's true, but it doesn't have to be true. It does work inside of its own system. Now, there's basically only 5 emotions. Since there's only 5 emotions and there's 5 colors of magic, and very conveniently, this was the sort of alchemical thread, 5 Chinese elements. Yes. A nice intersection happens. So we got anger, fire, we got sadness, water, we got joy, wood, we got fear, metal, and we got neutral, earth. Yeah, neutral was earth. And so then I was like, okay, is there a way to alchemize these? So another belief that I sort of axiomatically put on this is that, like, yeah, emotional energy is how shit gets done, which is very annoying because I really don't like that sort of Baptist preacher neologism about just like emotion is energy and motion. I'm like, that's stupid. What a dumb, hideous pun. It is absolutely correct, but I don't like it. Doesn't work in other languages. That's a really weird English thing to do. And even though it's true, it's accidentally true. You know what I'm saying?
Let me throw in one line real quick, just into the kiln here. Communication and time are the substrate upon which all work occurs.
Communication in time.
Communication and time.
Well, I'll yes and that to as just a bit because it's funny. I've been working because me and time, I have feelings about time. It's very troubling to have feelings about time. If you're gonna have feelings about time, now you got to spend emotional energy to deal with the thing that makes things happen. And so the only way out of that was, okay, what if time wasn't oscillations of a quartz crystal or ticks on a thing, but was Alan Lightman in Einstein's Dreams, fantastic book on relativity and its consequences from a narrative standpoint. That was the cool thing about it, is he writes this collection
The
of shit.
narrative standpoint is where we
It's
get in
just like,
trouble.
yeah, if
Because
fucking
there are no problems except but the story creates the problem. Because
yeah,
everything's great. Because
yeah,
everything's unfolding perfectly, right? If you zoomed out and saw how much you can be grateful for, you're good. And all you gotta do is keep showing up in your life and the good thing happens.
yeah. But that's a very shitty story. No one wants to watch someone constantly remembering that they're connected to all that is and everything's like dope. At least,
why
yeah,
but
they don't want to do it.
that's funny that's a shitty story because actually it's a really great story.
It's a great way to live. That's the thing. I would say it's a great way to live.
It's maybe a
Hideous
boring story.
in the sense of an unrecognizable as story. And so in this mode, time is a measurement of emotional intensity.
Time is a measurement of emotional intensity. I like that.
Yeah, basically, like when you're bored, how long is time?
You also reminded me of something from this Eastern sage, Ramana Maharshi. Says the extinction of the mind is the state in which there is a cessation of all efforts.
Yep.
I really like this idea of just like ceasing all efforts, right? Like anybody who thinks they have a problem or like thinks that they need to like do something, it's like, what if I come to you with an offering? I say, you get to be good forever and live your dream, live your flow if you stop trying.
Yep.
Stop trying. You don't need to put in any effort ever again. Like imagine how good things would get if you didn't try and just let things happen.
Except they'd have to try to imagine.
But for what audience, right? Who cares about your continuous rough draft of imagining how things might go for you? There's no listener for that.
But there always is. There's always a listener. I mean, here's the thing. I'm with you. It's just I think having run afoul of literally saying exactly that to people, like it is no longer a kindness to not honor the resistance that immediately shows up when you tell people to not resist. Yeah, the
there's a
fastest way for me to get that resistance isn't even to like put anything in front of them. Be like, stop resisting. Well, we'll fucking. I'm like, all right, here you are. Thank
yeah,
you. What's up?
yeah.
But so the time as the energy thing that got really important because suddenly it's like, okay, every person has like kind of their own time map for like, okay, when I'm sitting in say neutrality, the sort of meditative state, like, oh, that's where time feels good for me, or time feels good for me when I'm worried and like anxious all the time, or time only like matters and feels good when I'm like enjoying. Time only means stuff when I'm like in anger and like struggle. Time only feels stuff when I'm like in nostalgic and sad, or some mix of these. And so
Mm.
suddenly it's just like, well, yeah, how the hell do you want to spend your time is really which emotions do you want to feel?
Mm. Though I wonder if the emotions we feel are the same no matter whether we how we select our activities, right? I mean, it's like the character creation screen is like Google Calendar. I rediscovered a tweet that says my design tool of choice is Google Calendar, which I think is brilliant.
Right?
But yeah, it's like that character design screen, character selection screen. I know that you like that kind of analogy a lot. Yeah, what to spend our time on is going to determine what feelings we feel. But I also think that
Flip that around. Now that's a I will say that's a mishearing of what I'm saying. What we choose to feel is how we spend our time on. Like the character collection stream would be a choice of feelings first.
hmm,
If everything gets made via feelings, then the construction of feelings is also how everything gets made. That's the part that people are skipping out on. That's the reason why people say just stop trying. If they have, and that's usually what the resistance brings up, a pre-established belief, a brick in the tower of their self-conscious that says if I don't try, then the exact feeling that I absolutely don't want to have happen is going to show up there. How dare you ask me to stop trying? They don't really care about the stop trying. They care about the feeling they are utterly convinced they're going to feel on the other side of not trying. And that feeling is the
hmm,
reality. If you don't go to that feeling directly in a way, let them put it in their hands and have them choose to let it go, you've basically attacked them by saying the nicest thing you possibly could, which is, hey, you want to just like stop fucking doing that? Conk,
hmm,
conk, conk. What? So what? You just think I should just kill my kids? It's like, whoa, slow down.
yeah.
I didn't say any of that shit, except you did. You didn't know you said it.
Kerouac has a good line. I think he said, "Give people what they secretly want, and if, yeah, offer them what they secretly want, and they of course immediately become panic stricken."
Yep, I did it. I don't feel dumb about it anymore, but I did for some time. And now I'm like, well, I will offer them that which they will pay for and sneak in the thing that they want, and they can deal with that with their own blood.
Hmm. Well, okay, let's take it down to solid ground. I told you about my 25-hour a week service job making between 23 and $30 an hour in tips.
Fuck yeah. Hell yeah.
as, as a single guy who really wants nothing more but time to work on writing music, baseball, conversations, walks, taking pictures. I can somehow get by on 2,500 a month. Now we could spend the rest of this time saying, okay, God, can we finally push ourselves off the fucking stoop and say, how are you and I each going to hack our way to 10K a month? Because we can, but I'm
Look at
more
this.
interested.
Before we even go there, who the hell is saying do that?
Who the hell is what?
Who the hell is saying do that? Be like, well, we could do this thing that I would never suggest in a million years.
What
I'm pretty
making
sure it's
what
not that.
making 10K a month as like your genius as a service?
I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but I would never pitch it to anybody. Everyone hates me when I do that.
Well, you can't pitch them that, but what does having you in someone's world, is that worth $1,000 a month to them?
I mean, maybe we'll see. I don't fucking know. What I've got right now is I've got this fake Magic the Gathering. I'm curious. There's someone who moves, and this is why it's my favorite game. We'll call it psycho spiritual fly fishing. There's something in people, and I'm gonna just gently call an awareness of you as well, because I've practiced, won't call it no mind, but just like ruthless like lazy innocence. It's not bright and bushy tailed innocence. It's just the like can't be bothered innocence. I've committed to it so much that I will start being able to like see the stuff that people used to think that I would say about whatever, having like converted all of my energy into just not doing that. I now know that I'm like, that one didn't come from me. That one's floating in the, and then I want to catch it. Like as a weird cat, like the only thing that catches my attention and drives my ambition is when I find these sort of unspoken things that are being reacted to, and I go, well, hold on. I want to interrogate this motherfucker before we start chasing him. I want to interrogate this person before we start discounting him. I want to know where they came from. Where's their ID say on it? What is this? Why is that the narrative to fight against Steven? I don't know, but immediately I was just like, I didn't say that, so now it's interesting. I'm not either. I am a much better ventriloquist than I thought I was, and have thrown my voice aside for myself, and it has landed to you, or we've caught another voice. Now, all of that said, just so I'm not gaslighting anybody, my ability to do that in some form absolutely is worth $1,000 a month. I haven't yet weaponized because
Weaponized.
the ways in which I find myself most joyful to use aren't at people's expense, and literally the aspect of like business is at people's expense.
Businesses at people's expense.
Yeah, just
I mean,
literally at their expense. They will spend money to do the thing. You are doing the thing at their expense.
I still think consulting and self-hate go well together, and I haven't cracked that code. I mean, like the anxiety that book Flawless Consulting spawns is too irresistible. It's almost like there's a Sisyphean dimension to getting good. In a sense, it's athletes looking for a sport, right? Like you said, business is about to be taken over by artists, and it's like, well, artists.
I was about to say business is about to become art.
Yeah, I mean, I think business has been art the whole time.
Well, no, I'm very precise with my words on this one. Food wasn't art until we had enough of it to like make art out of it. War was not art until we got good enough at it to like have John Woo movies. That's a like, lazy metaphor, but like there's a transition from no, this is tech survival technology to craft, and I think business is having its inflection moment. So when I say like the artists are about to like take over business about to become art, it is in honoring of the, oh no, this was absolutely needed for survival, and now it is not, and so now we must make art out of it, and that transition is going to mean a lot of business people are going to have to learn art skills and vice versa. And if it is not constructed exactly that way, people might start doing insane things like throwing artists at business problems, thinking just categorically they'll get solved. And it's like, no, this is fucking artist doesn't know shit about business, or vice versa. Oh, the business people just need to go into the art space and they'll go fix this. Like, no, they don't know shit about art. Like, it is a both and moment that business itself is transforming into, and that we as the cells of that egregore get to play between space of that.
Okay, so what if you think this is the wave indeed, why not tilt your mastering allyship goggles toward bringing together business and art and being that translator, being that unifier?
Oh, yeah, we're here. We're back.
Yeah.
This is that for me.
Magic
is a very successful art object that is also a successful business object.
Then I will ask if
I've made the art of helping people the thing that I care about, how does one make someone an effective ally using an existing successful art structure, game structure, business structure? And the answer is, yeah, stack emotions on
game structure, business structure, stack emotions. I mean, you made me want to ask, is flawless consulting the modern hero's journey, right? You're trying to break into yourself, right? I like this idea that wisdom is remembering everything you know, right? You're trying to put together the pieces of yourself and amalgamate them together into you are a boss, you are a visionary, and you are for hire, in a way that you arrange pieces in your world. I wonder if being that superstar consultant is the hero's journey now, and it's a journey of worthiness, and you're trying to redeem the past.
I mean, I don't know about all that. Like, I'll be just completely real. Like, imagine that your world is constructed of these emotional units. The only thing that is interesting to me is, can you either for someone, that would be the most expensive thing. Let's say someone sat down and be like, my emotions are all fucked up, but I need therapy. I'm like, I'd really rather not, but for like an exorbitant amount of money, I will actually just sit next to you with a spotlight and highlight every single emotional thing that you do and tell you exactly how you should arrange them in your like inner world. It'll be utterly boring to me. You'll probably resist it the entire time. And then you'll have a world that is very obviously constructed by someone else. But whatever, I'll take your money for that. I'm more comfortable in the, hey, everyone's got the same goddamn building blocks. If I can just help you bring your attention to your own building blocks, and then for funsies, we can just play a game together, a collaborative game of these building blocks, then your own hedonic treadmill of liking to play games, having fun is now yoked to tidying your inner world. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll fucking do that. And if it turns out I can only make money on just the shiny cards of it, so be it.
Tidying your inner world. Well, yeah. I mean, what kind? I mean, have you done much like corporate training or like run trainings with your card game activity for teams?
I mean, I cannot stress enough, and I love your curiosity. It is moving faster than the speed of narrative, so that's probably why it's confused. This got created 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, like, you didn't start 3 weeks ago. I mean,
No,
we
no,
were
I'm
sort
saying
of
this
having this.
card game does
Yeah, yeah,
start
yeah.
3 weeks ago. It's an absurd question
Well,
without
okay.
its whole story.
So, okay. So we can also examine real life through you started a in-person in office job a few months ago.
January.
January. That's quite a ways. How is that going, and how do you see your time outside of that, and where do you think your life is going in the next, say, 3 months?
Don't know what's gonna happen in 3 months. I don't want to do the job anymore. It was very educational.
Okay. How much were you making?
I'm making $20 an hour.
Okay. What can you do for 60 an hour?
I don't know. I'd have to find someone who's got 60 an hour to spend.
Well, those, I mean, it's that money is out there.
See, this is the trap. I will say this is the trap. It's an important trap. You're gonna not do that. Even in the answer, the money is out there. It's like, yeah, the money's with the people though. Can't divorce the money from the people.
Sure.
Because if the money is out there, it's like, well, yeah, suddenly now I'll be like searching. At the end of the day, you're still gonna have to talk to probably some to get it. And if it's one person with a fund, that's needle in a haystack. If it's a bunch of people with $60 for a card game, that's a different game. That
Sure.
business game, that business craft itself is the sussing out of like, okay, which people win where that stacks
Mm-hmm.
up to $60 an hour. Like we will create these strange, let's call it a badge, $60 an hour badge. That's wild. When someone says, how much do you make? I say $20 an hour. Some people will go, oh, I'm a $20 an hour person. I'm like, no, I sit in this room and $20 an hour comes out every 2 weeks. My identity is not based on that, but it is a reality, a fact of my reality. Whereas there's some people who are like, oh, how do I make my 20 hour a job situation better? They might say, go make 21 hours or 5. They might even go as absurd to go, let's go 60 an hour. And my brain would go, I don't know about all that. I may just like, what are the actual building blocks that lets me know that I'm moving in a right direction, that I'm having a good time? That's not like, let's be real, 20
Mm-hmm.
hour, 40 hours a week and feeling well-being is a good situation. I know that I want to not do that, not even because of the not well-being part, which is so annoying, but specifically the emotional cost of the well-being. Metaphorically, with these cards, like this was a game that I built so that I could track my own skillful emotional transformations to stay okay doing that. And I'm like, I'm a fucking baller. And it's a little bit insane to watch myself actively going for a job that really is click, 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 click. Some people don't have the inner world complexity to
No, that's not the job. Like weren't you like managing a branch?
what?
T-Mobile, I thought you were like managing a store
Oh no, no, not even a little bit. I'm frontline customer service, taking calls
at the headquarters in a phone bank.
at a call center.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so like,
I imagine that you were working at a T-Mobile store,
oh, I mean, yeah,
which I thought would be a great role for you.
people would be imagining stuff.
At least
I
you get to work with people on problems and solve problems for people. That's like sort of what I do in the service industry, as a
let's just say I benefit a lot, and I've ceased to benefit from this people's imaginings of me. It used to be very useful for people to imagine,
people's imaginings of you. Say more.
like example, like I do have a memory. I don't I can spend a lot of time explaining something, or I can spend very little time explaining something, and I can do both. It's amazing. Some people can only do one or the other. When I spend a little bit of information explaining something to people, and then I get the telephone game back of like what people have imagined that I'm doing, I'm just like, good job, brand. That's solid. I told them this, and it came back this. That means that there's a window that's existing in the world doing work for me around my self image that for a long time, very positive. I have now reached the end of that positivity because something like I work at T-Mobile, people are like, well, how could a window that I conceive of work at T-Mobile? And another very beautiful, flattering situation will emerge. But if they were then to try to go to a T-Mobile store to find me, they'd be like, where he at? It's like, yeah, he's not here. We don't know who you're talking about. And it's, again, a kindness and it's a usefulness to myself up to the point of actually having people find out where I am. One of the big
Hmm.
happened in college was people would no one ever knew what my major was and no one ever knew where I was from. And not because I hid it, I would tell people I'm a Chinese major from Wichita, Kansas. Those bits of information just did not hit people's inner world enough to stay. And so I used to do it as a game. I'd ask people like, "Hey, where do you think I'm from?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, you're from Portland, right?" I'm like, "No, like LA." New, and I could see them being like, I have a meme that has you sort out there. And the more that they would try and hold on to it, I'd be like, you do not have the capacity to guess my own specificity because I am such an odd person. And not like this is something I really struggle with in Portland because there's a lot of people who were odd on purpose. They were like, I would like to be unique
Hmm.
and I'm going to do that. And I'm like, every day I try and sand down my weirdness and a new Hydra head grows and I hate it.
Every day I try to every day I try to sand down my weirdness and another Hydra head grows. That's cool.
Unless you would like to have one head.
Now, why the word try? Every day you try. Why do you
Oh,
sand down the weirdness rather than polish it?
oh, it's a paradox. It's a very fun turn of phrase. I love what's the it's not semantics. What's the one that has to do with like word order and ambiguity and linguistics? I love it. So it's I was saying both at the same time, which is every day I try to sand down my weirdness, and then the thing heavy goes. What I was actually saying was every day I try to sand down my weirdness, a Hydra head grows. So I have stopped. Like truly, like there's an ambiguous statement upon interrogation of that statement. I'm actually in the I don't do it anymore because every day I try to sand down my things, a Hydra head shows. It's actually a terrible solution. If you're a weird person, truly at your heart, sanding down the weirdness is absurd. Every time you do, a Hydra head's gonna show. Is gonna.
Hmm.
So I don't anymore. But I do remember the life in which the exact same sentence was true, but with a different inflection. It was like every day I would wake up trying to sand down a new weirdness and a new Hydra ever grow. And one I was in the Sisyphean fuck shit reality, and now I'm just like, I don't do it because it doesn't work. I don't need to have any philosophical beliefs around it. It just don't work. Um, but it's funny because that same sentence can hold both of those realities.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I think a lot about Miles Davis, and creativity being about change, and going with the flow, right? Just like you said, like with this call, it's like we'll start riding the wave, and you ride it wherever it goes. Like People are just afraid to ride the wave, man. I mean, everyone worrying about metrics or money or clients or stuff. They're staying in fear brain. They're staying in numbers brain. They're staying in spreadsheet, which is like just like a brain worm.
Well, they're not
It's
worried about riding the wave. They're worried about drowning.
but they haven't even gotten close. They've still got the life preserver around their
Yeah,
neck.
I'm not saying it's a rational fear, but like no one, like if you could give them an experience that absolutely would have them not drown and put them on the wave and had them feel that, they would all self-report, holy crap, that was great, with the exception of some people who do just have sensitive nervous systems that go, I hate this, like I don't like roller coasters. Some people are like, no, 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 they're the safest way to have that feel. I'm like, don't care how safe it is, my stomach hates it. There will always
Mm,
be some people who truly don't like riding the wave. Most of them would love to ride the wave and are afraid of dying.
mm.
And there's no way to get to the wave before courting the death. And so that's the crisis. They're sitting on the
No
beach
way to get to the
looking at the
wave.
wave, being like, I
Yeah.
could probably kill the shit out of me. And it's like, yeah, but you'll know a little closer to the wave. Like you'll truly know when you touch the wave. Like, can we at least get your hand in some water? Okay, now can we get you in a pool? Now can we, like, there are ways in which you can start engaging with the wholeness in such a way that your intuitions of instant death might be, actually there's like an order of magnitude of options that could happen. And if I do it in the presence of like legitimate safety producing things, in the presence of a lifeguard with a water wing next to me on a board that like
Mm,
won't stab me in the fucking, there's all sorts of actually pretty reasonable things you can do, but every step forward has like another cost. And like that's fine, but like
mm,
I think people aren't good at doing that inner ecology. Again, cannot stress enough. The
mm,
ocean game, you're gonna have to play new cards the closer you get to the reality of surfing. And most people only have like a binary switch. I'm either fully
mm,
engaged in surfing and have burned all of my ships and now surfing is my entire life, or I'm sitting on the beach thinking about the concept of surfing. I go, that's, there's too many in-betweens for that to work. You might find out that you don't like surfing, but you really like looking at bikini babes, and you got to be at least that close to the fucking sand to see them, to the beach to
mm.
see them. Like you might find out that out in your pursuit of, is surfing even a thing or not. Like there's so many things in that in between that you could find if you're committed to a process of, well, I mean, I'll just go there because I guess I'm here. If you knew what feeling you wanted to court through the process of finding out the thing you didn't know about, you can bail and still have gotten all the payment that you wanted, which is having more of that feeling.
Mm. That's the payment you wanted. Is that what you said?
I mean, that's the payment that anyone's getting anyway. Like, I got a check in the mail today and I was super happy. And I was like, okay, great. So glad that you're super happy that you got that. Can
Well,
you
you're
use that
saying
super happiness for uh watch an episode
when
of Dimension 20, which I can. I actually watched a very funny, there's a very funny full belly out loud joke that happened on Dimension 20 last night. Died laughing for 10 minutes, and it did rhyme with the feeling of getting paid. And I have to spend some
mm,
amount of energy to make sure that I never forget that those are the same thing. At the end of the day, what I'm going to do with this money is the same thing that I got for the money that I spent to watch fake games on TV.
it did rhyme with the feeling of getting paid. It almost reminds me of like finding your not soulmate, but at least someone that you could at least have a long-term relationship with, which I've found recently, which has been it's good to remember feeling. But yeah, it's almost like striking the jackpot because all of a sudden you don't mind the idea of next year and the year after, and it makes it easier to, like plan in years, think in months, work in days, live and feel in moments,
Yeah.
which I think is a nice little like breakdown. All
Well,
of a sudden, it's like,
there's a meta
hmm,
space. There's a meta space of, again, going back to the dumb game. If you know that there is a finite cost for you to access any of the feelings that you want to do, suddenly your self-trust is, how much can I stay in the game of just doing that? Like it sucks at work sometimes. There'll be some days where like this was an easier day. Why? Because it only took me this amount of energy to play the emotional card game to feel okay. Why was this day hard? Well, I leave every day. I leave being like, hey, I made it. I'm great. And some days I'll be a little tired, and some days I'll be a little less tired. And that's really the only difference. Every day, pretty much since I've been at that job, I have left being like, I could do this again. I could do this again. Eventually, I'm starting to get to the weird meta feelings of just like, am I being kind to myself by doing this again? But even that can be alchemized, and it's just like, well, yeah, the kindness that I am doing right now is to reminding myself that money can be used to buy goods and services, and yet, and so that still happens, and eventually, the choice of making a different play is going to be cheaper than the choice of making the same play, and I can chart that internally in a way that I couldn't before. It had to be intuition. It didn't have an interface that I could actually check and track over time.
I like rather than a card game, I think about it like a chess game of how to feel okay every day. And like I like what you said earlier that I'm like going through our chat here that I'm also tweeting some choice blocks from as I go. Because it's always fun to play on stage with you, Wendell. I really appreciate that our time lined up and we could have a really good jazz session today.
Mm.
Like the chess match of feeling good every day. I like how you said, breaking time down into emotional units. So all of a sudden it's I almost see it like solitaire of like you're like turning over cards and it's like you're building your day out of little emotional units. And
Mm.
I really like, chemistry and physics going back to the measure of joules, Joules,
Mm.
which I forgot exactly what that measures. It's not exactly watts.
Joule is Joule a measure of work? Because then it's going to be power
Yeah.
over power
Yes.
over time.
Yes. Power over time. That's interesting. Because we can also think about
Chronomancy,
like
the most powerful
recorded.
magic.
What is
I was doing a quote from Dimension 20. Chronomancy is the most powerful magic, the magic of time. I was just watching Avengers Endgame, which of course Doctor Strange
chronomancy?
gets rid of the time stone because he saw in the future that they needed the time stone, so Tony Stark to die to da 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 da. At the end of the day, the most OP look was the fact the entire plot of the movie was about time travel and can you do it? And he who could control time won the day. Oh, hello. Hell yeah. Great.
Are you looking at my tweets by chance?
No, I was my friend Patrice just texted me about some they made some pins. So it goes full circle. So I got paid because I did a writing camp in Baltimore. My friend Patrice does a nonprofit, did a thing. Every time I do this camp, I'm doing this for the fun of it because especially when you're doing gig work, I can't count on that money. I don't even know how much it is. I don't ever sign a contract. I do the camp, have a good time, and then magic money appears around this time every year. It's amazing. So did it, got paid, was fantastic. But before we were doing this, they were like, "Hey, how did you get your allyship pins made?" And I was like, "Oh, here's how you get the pins made. Here's a merch thing." Anyways, they just texted me, and at first I was like, "Oh, are they worried about having me gotten paid?" And they're like, "No, the pins got here." And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, I remember telling you about like how to get the pins done. Those pins look really fucking dope." And then just kind of laughing at that full circle moment because as absurd as it is, everything that I've experienced to any degree of success, I can help people also do that. And do you want to go there? We're going to go there for a second. I'm going to put a card in attack mode, but it has come up a lot where like, okay, I know how to make pins. I don't really, my self concept does not allow me to be a pen design consultant, but I have done it successfully a couple of times. And if I got over that self concept even a little bit, it's an income stream. Someone's like, "Oh my god, I want to like make these pins, but I don't know, I'm gonna fuck them up." And I'll be like, "No, you're not gonna fuck them up. Here's the entire process you probably would have found out on your own, but like packaged in a way and with a little bit of accountability. And all you got to do for the cessation of that fear that you have is give me some money." And this is the card that I placed down in face mode. Like I've been saying this to a lot of people. So I'm gonna put some cards in front of you. One of my favorite ones is anger. Anger is great. There's an emotional feeling of anger,
Ooh.
energetic of anger. A lot of people are afraid of the emotional experience of anger. Literally, everyone has to use this to do anything. So, what most people are doing is alchemizing the game in such a way where they never have to experience the emotion of anger and yet still wake up, make coffee, do stuff. To do anything is to use anger as an emotional energy. But if you can't own using anger as emotional energy, then you've got to actually play a lot of very complicated moves to do stuff. My dear friend Sadness, I'm sadness pilled. This is the year that I got sadness pilled. Sadness, as far as I can tell, is what makes art. It is the thing that allows us to recognize beauty and meaning and connection and purpose. However, sadness has what I'm going to call a negative energy valence. Sadness allows you to recognize things. It does not allow you to do shit. In fact, sadness says, slow down, look at your purpose, look at your meaning, make sure you're getting your connection, look at this beautiful thing. It will take your energy away. So every artist who has made anything has actually done some weird alchemy of this anger and sadness. Most of it, but as you almost certainly know, most of them front as the sadness. And they think that the sadness is making the stuff happen. Ridiculous. No, it's the anger that's making the stuff happen. But since sadness has a negative valence and anger has a positive one, if they balance out, this does nothing. Anytime that the anger is a little bit more than the sadness, something gets done, but it's still got to get hidden. So maybe they'll use something like joy to hide the anger. Joy actually has a pretty positive valence to it. It's just not as big as anger. If anger's got 2, joy's got 1. So you might use a joy to do that. Or maybe you throw in my favorite, you throw in a nice neutrality. Neutrality will neutralize anything. Actually, maybe you're getting the sadness, neutrality to balance out the sadness, use the extra anger that's not being hidden by the sadness to go do a thing. All this shit's happening, no one knows it's happening. But here's the thing. You only get paid if you get rid of the fear card.
Yeah, but people don't even know how to pay you to get rid of the fear.
Oh, they absolutely do. This is the easiest one.
But if you're not, but if making $60 an hour is even foreign to you, no one's consulting you on something as abstract as fear, right?
No, they're not going to consult you on fear. You're talking too hard. I'm saying if someone is hungry, they are going to experience fear. They're going to go, oh no, I'm going to starve. You give them food, and the reason they pay you is not because they're full. They're paying you because the fear's gone away.
Okay. Let me read something about anger, which you reminded me of, which I've quoted a lot recently and has kind of met me in a pretty dark, angry time, which has maybe been going on for most of my life. From the poet David Whyte. Anger. Anger is the deepest form of care for another, for the world, for the self, for a life, for the body, for a family, and for all our ideals, all vulnerable and all possibly about to be hurt. Stripped of physical imprisonment and violent reaction, anger points toward the purest form of compassion. The internal living flame of anger always illuminates what we belong to, what we wish to protect, and what we are willing to hazard ourselves for. What we usually call anger is only what's left of its essence when it reaches the lost surface of our mind or our body's incapacity to hold it, or the limits of our understanding. What we name as anger is actually only the incoherent physical incapacity to sustain this deep form of care in our outer daily life. The unwillingness to be large enough and generous enough to hold what we love helplessly in our bodies or our mind with the clarity and breadth of our whole being. What we've named anger on the surface is the violent outer response to our own inner powerlessness, a powerlessness connected to such a profound sense of rawness and care that it can find no proper outer body identity or voice. I'll stop there because we have enough.
I feel very rude with what I'm about to do. What a beautiful thing. It's beautiful. I'm going to start by saying that that's beautiful. And also, of course, a goddamn poet would do exactly this because sadness is the emotion of care.
Sadness is the emotion of care.
Sadness is the emotion of care. And if you are a masculine creator, which this sounds like this person is, you usually can't front with the care. So what you'll do is the exact opposite. You'll Hemingway it and be like, look at all this anger. It's like, no, you're doing the sadness thing, but you're putting anger on top of it. And the way that a lot of people will do the opposite. Here's my take. And again, this is just my world. I'm not going after White. It's fine if you like that. Totally keep it. But let's play in this world for a second where sadness is the emotion of care and anger is the emotion of power.
Okay.
And so the powerlessness thing hit, like that feeling of powerlessness, you go, oh, I'm feeling powerless. Let me spin up my embodied sense of power and do something about it. But you can do that about shit you don't care about. That's why games be happening. That's why sports be getting in all our grills. Like, this stuff doesn't really matter. It's really that we have, in a weird meta way, care about our power. You cease to care about power. You still have it, but you may not yearn for it. You may not long for it. You may not use all of your anger points to solve the lack that comes from sadness, because sadness's job is to show you what you care about and how far away you are from it. Anger's job is to protect against threats or break through obstacles. So if you've got an obstacle called not art happening, you will spin up your anger to make art happen, unless your obstacle gets too big, and then, is this the sadness? Then you'll feel sad. You'll go, I tried. No, it's too far. No. And then suddenly, oh, if you got here, downward spiral. Now suddenly, not only do you not have the anger of trying anymore, now you have the depression of having failed. What you need, of course, is the neutrality to say, hey, really, you should have probably, oh, it didn't work. Let's neutral, let's reset. Is there another play? Neutrality is the reset button. Neutrality is the reset button. You're trying, it's not working. You're running out of energy. Instead of getting to the place where now you've got to use despair to force yourself into rest and retreat, just throw neutrality on it. It's not going to get you anywhere, but it will stop you from doing stuff that's useless. But here's the beauty about the sadness. Unfortunately, sadness can call others' anger. I see a friend of mine sad, I get pissed off. And so now, even though this is giving me negative energy, it's calling in the big guns of someone else's anger. Calling the big guns of someone else's anger. It's calling it sadness. If you can't metabolize sadness around you, you're gonna do all sorts of crazy shit to help someone not be sad. And people know that. And so that's why I'm like, hey, don't use your sadness like that. Your sadness should literally only be pointed towards the things you care about. And if the thing you care about is people solving your problems, you are going to destroy your entire self-concept to get people to do that.
Well, solving someone's sadness takes care.
Or it takes pissing them off.
Well, no, I mean, if they're sad and you're trying to, right? I mean, again, I just had my significant other's dog is on its way to death. And it was a very tender, careful moment earlier today.
Yeah. But here's the thing, you don't solve for the sadness. You see it, it has a satisfaction state. You can either get the information from it and it solves itself. That's what the emotions are for. They give you information, they give you energy. Once you have the information and the energy, you can dispense with whatever the hell else was going on. The information is, I care about my dog. Some part of me is forgetting that every time I remember its loss. And so the sadness keeps getting spun to be like, don't ever forget that you care about the dog. When you can just sit in the caring about the dog and the loss and confront the fact that like death doesn't take things places. You still have all your memories. You still have the stuff, confronting the fact that the paradox of loss that exists, which is it has gone into the undiscovered country. It is now an incomputable distance away from me. Therefore, my sadness is always justified. Therefore, I can stay in the negative emotional energy forever. And it's like, you can, literally, mechanically, you can, until you recognize that actually you want to live just in another emotion. That's what I'm saying. You pay yourself in the emotions you want to have. Until you can recognize that you want to live in whatever the satisfied state of whatever these emotions are more than you want to get the information of a bit of emotion, that's your way out. There's actually a very funny story. I think it's funny now, only years later and after processing some stuff. I was in a Chinese literature class, and my instructor was my instructor gave us a test. The test was absurdly difficult. It was a classical Chinese class. And in the test, we were meant to read and translate a passage from Sima Qian's Record of History, Han Dynasty Classic. And it was specifically the section called the comedies. This should have clued us in, but it was so insane that we couldn't really put it together. So we're reading I remember this. I was a junior in college and I was losing my mind. I was like, this is some of the hardest Chinese I've ever translated in my life. I don't know what's going on. I'm barely sticking around. I can barely figure it out. I spent hours and hours and hours trying to figure it out. Didn't work. And then eventually I just had to turn in whatever the hell I had. And then I went to turn it in. It was a take home test. Turn it in. We get to the next class after that test, and the teacher, Hyung Ru, was like, how did the test go for you guys? And we were like, bad. It was really hard. We didn't know what was going on. It's like, you guys have no sense of humor. And we were like, yes, we have no sense of humor. This is fucked up. This crazy test you gave us. Because the actual question was one of the questions after we translate the passage, he gave us a series of questions to check, like, did we understand? And he's like, sum up this passage in one Chinese word. And I was like, this is fucked up on a good day. To sum up any passage into one Chinese character is insane. But okay, we'll fucking try that, I guess. And we didn't have the answer. I don't remember putting down the answer. I just remember just being like, whatever. Turns out he put a joke in there for his own self in the test. So, oh boy, we lost him. We're still recording. Well, I guess we're still recording. That's funny. No response. Do I still keep? I guess if we're recording, do I still keep telling the story? That's funny. Let's see what happens. I should, yeah, I guess we'll pause record. I just remembered that I wasn't recording.
That's cool. Yeah,
either way, so there's something about that. That's why the game is so important. And I do want to like leave on this bit is that artists do the sadness. They've got the basic energy enough. Sometimes they get delight and triumph, which is the satisfied form of anger. They'll feel triumph only when they're succeeding, but they won't feel triumph when they're in the making. Sometimes they use the love of the game to do the thing, but find themselves accidentally getting paid. They're getting accidentally paid because they don't know what problems their art is solving, but it is. To be a successful artist is to have solved someone's problem. You don't have to be aware of it to get paid for it. The new modality is no, if you're going to do the art of business, you cannot leave what problem you're solving in the same way that no businessman would ever be left with not knowing what problem they're solving. That is that's one of the fundamental moves of business. To do art as business is to recognize that there are actually very specific emotional problems that art solves for. And unfortunately, it will demystify you as the artist will be demystified if you know what emotional problems your shit is solving, because that's the only way you can get paid consistently for it. And so you will have to either be okay with that, swallow the bitterness that comes from the fact that like you know what effect you're having on people, or you're going to have two arts. You'll have to have the art that you use to solve problems, the designed experience, and then the art that you use for surprising yourself with your own deal. But suddenly, if you're going to be the audience of your own art, you can't get paid for it. You're self-paying yourself for it in the emotions that you want to have of being surprised as to who you are. If you want to get paid for it, you cannot be surprised at all.
Yeah, and so that allows you to do other paid things. Yeah, that's where I've netted out is there are things you do that you won't get paid for, and there are things you do that you do get paid for, and that they feed each other.
But you got to do them on purpose, otherwise you'll get in that situation where like,
yeah, but more likely you stumble into them just by doing them, and then the pattern emerges once you're already doing it. Like, oh, this actually does fit.
Still got to do it on purpose. And here's the thing: if you're especially
but this gets into trying. This gets into trying. This gets into trying.
Whole thought before you poo-poo it, because you don't know what you're saying no to.
Well, this is jazz, and sometimes we both want to play at the same time.
You can play the hi-hat no, but I'm like, wrong key. You do got to do it on purpose. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you don't got to do it. You hope the
Well,
intention of
I don't know how much experience you have doing that. It sounds like you're pretty unsatisfied with your current
okay,
money situation.
yellow flag. I don't know what you're reacting against. I don't know what you're hearing that's making this resistance happen before the whole thought gets completed. So I would like to speak to that person. I want to hear what their resistances are ahead of time because this could be useful, but there's no space for it. Whatever it is I'm trying to say, I don't even know what it is, but I'm getting the don't finish this thought. Don't bring this thought into awareness.
Well, maybe because I don't think you're listening enough.
Yeah. So, with your permission, I would like to complete the thought because I can hear the not that, but I don't even know what the that is. What I am saying that does seem like it's being pushed against immediately is do stuff on purpose. Is that the thing that's having issues with?
It was more the
Well, keep it with what I said because that's where I don't want to be responding to what you're hearing if I'm not saying it.
never mind. Keep going.
Yeah, so do it on purpose. Does that seem cool? I'm very interested in hearing what you say on the other side of
Yeah,
you.
but that assumes that you think, you know how it's going to work,
No, it
right?
does not, and that's the pushback. So you're pushing back against something I'm definitely not saying. Doing on purpose has nothing to do with knowing the result ahead of time.
It's not about the result, but it's a sense of knowing how the process works, right? I
No,
mean, because
yeah,
I've done a lot of BSing about,
so cool. You're reacting
turning
against
your
yourself, and that means you're not
soul.
listening to me. So let me just say my thing. Are you curious as to what I mean when I say this, or do you want to tell me what you're hearing when I say this?
That right there is a very good question, and that actually is the root of many, many things, especially when it comes to our discipline of conversation as art. And it's, yeah, do you actually want to? And you know what? Sometimes you burn out listening to the other person, and you're more in touch with what you are thinking.
Yeah, which
And
is cool. I just need a more, I think, subtle flag than know what you're saying is crazy versus, oh, I'm in an unreceptive mode. I'd prefer that one if we can throw
mm,
that. You can have enough
mm,
awareness to throw that, then I'll slow down. But
mm-hmm.
especially midstream, like someone who's also trying to stay in attunement, I want to make sure that I'm not ripping farts. But I also know that I do try and say pretty simple things. Do something on purpose is too vague to really be responded to. Negative. This is what I mean by the like low context statement, where I'll go, "Oh, I'll say it's a small thing," to draw out what it is heard in the small, simple thing. But truly, it is the idea of I'm going as a business person to make money to go on with the intention of solving someone's problem. You do have to do that one on purpose. You can do it by accident, but you will not be good at it if you don't do it on purpose.
Solving someone's problem. Um, yeah, I mean, stumbling into this, bartender barista job at a kava bar was like, oh, people already show up willing to pay money and wanting to pay money, rather than creating demand for a new thing. Um, you can go plug yourself into a place where transactions are already happening,
Yeah.
desire is already created,
Oh,
and you can man that station and collect money, and you get some of it.
yes. Which is
Uh,
solving your problem, which is beautiful. If you've got a problem of needing money, you solve your problem by tapping into someone who solved someone else's problem. The issue is sometimes you get too far away from who's actually being served. And so suddenly you identify more as the conduit of
mm,
recognizing that actually you are a steward of this larger problem getting solved. I work with a bunch of people who do not remember that we are here to be in service to T-Mobile customers. Their job is to not get yelled at by their boss. And I'm like, great, you're going to be less successful than me
mm,
because they're not
yeah.
tapped into the fundament of the business proposition, which is we are solving some pretty deep problems. And especially as artists, deep, deep problems. I'll make some art and someone will be like, holy crap, you healed my relationship with your dad. I was like, that's a hard thing for me to do fucking on purpose, but okay, if that's what's resonating with people, is there an opportunity for me as an artist to explore the concept of fatherhood? The fucking Avengers movies did this shit great. They
Mm,
start off as very emotionally mature, gifted kids, and every single one of these motherfuckers at the end of the fourth phase deals with some sort of daddy issue. Tony Stark becomes a father. Hawkeye gets his own fucking show where he's got to like teach his daughter how to be a superhero. Thor ends up with the whole Christian Bale daddy thing. Like every single one of those motherfuckers crosses a threshold into father, and that is art being made to solve the fact that we've got a bunch of gifted like teenage masculine folk who don't have myths to guide them into fatherhood, and they have strategically made art to produce that. Now, here's the thing: the problem that Disney is solving for itself, this is where it gets a little messed up, is those dads need to take those daughters to Disneyland, and if they don't learn how to be good fathers, they won't have enough money to earn the tickets to send them to Disneyland. And so it's this weird dicey thing where it's like the art did do that. The art succeeded, and the art was solving a larger problem. And right now we're sitting with the writer's strike of we are misaligned on what problem we are solving as creators.
Writer's strike is interesting, yeah.
And I think that game is important. And I think people should play that one more on purpose, because while there is more responsibility to it, there's more power. And my worry, especially because sadness, I love sadness to death. It's a very self-indulgent emotion. Artists can be very self-indulgent based on the fact that they are beauty creators. But the fear game is the game of awareness. And many artists will stick their heads in the sand to pursue their sad art. And I'm like, that's dope. But you only change the world when you can solve for this fear thing.
Solve for fear. Yeah, solving for fear. That's that's a really good line right there. Yeah, I don't know. I've been revisiting Machiavelli. Talks a lot about it.
I love it. It truly is great. There's no wryness. There is no like.
Happy Monday, motherfuckers. We are revisiting Machiavelli.
Should revisit Machiavelli. I think people should revisit a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Remembering is to re-put together. I remember Machiavelli by revisiting him.
Remembering putting the members back together. Remembering a place, putting everyone places, right? There's like a theater director kind of thing to it. What was I going to say?
Remember Machiavelli, solving for fear.
Oh, right. Fear and love.
Yep.
Those are the principal drivers of human behavior. And yeah, again, I've spent a decade on Twitter reading tech and VC stuff, and it's like solving problems. And I remember there was an Atlantic article that had the headline, Silicon Valley has a problem.
Yeah.
Where everything's the problem. And it's like, there's a lot more than problems, right? Just like in writing, there's a lot more than arguments to make. There's a lot more things to do than to argue.
Yes.
And it goes back to what you were saying much earlier of, what feelings do we want to have? Yes. You're almost a day designer, right? Yes. And if the game is chess pieces of emotional units, each day becomes a mosaic, and our days become mosaic pieces themselves in a larger mosaic of our day, our week, our month, our season, our year, our decade, our generation. And everyone's out here making moves on their chessboard and putting pieces of their chessboard into play, and we scroll through other people's chessboards and we remember what has made those particular moves. We imagine each person's whole chain of events that lead to the white hot tip that we're seeing in the latest post.
Just slightly, because I see where you're going with the chess metaphor, but the Western mind, chess is a bad one for this. And I'll just say by asking the question, who's the opponent? Just straight up, if we move to chess, suddenly it is a war game. And I do think, which I'm okay with this show, I would then start introducing Go. I would say instead of chess, I'll allow it to be Go, mostly because I'll be real. I made this as a card game specifically because the card game, the shuffling, the randomness, the dealing, the handing, the communal nature of emotions is more true than battle. Like there's a version of this game, even as you're bringing it up, there's a solitaire version where you're just doing time trials to see how much effectively you can manipulate your emotions to achieve a yet to be determined end. I'm still making the game. There is a competitive version, but it is not a head-to-head fight. It is a race. Who can emotionally alchemize faster to get a goal? And then there's a communal version where actually you can start playing emotional cards on other players towards a shared goal. So it also is important to look at how we use our game metaphors, because I do think, and this is one of the ways in which capitalism has lost, where the game of art is dangerous. Artists do not like fighting each other. Like some of the greatest battles in art is Beach Boys, Beatles, and like there's that apocryphal
Mhm.
story of Brian Wilson having to pull off the PCH and weep hearing Sergeant Pepper's for the first time while they're still recording Smile. That's devastating for an artist if you're head to head, but art we know is collaborative. So if there is going to be a business of art, and if business is where the game metaphor emerges, this is very important in my schema. Play happens first, games happens later, and games happens at the exact same moment of enlightenment, of science, of business, of everything post
Play leads to
enlightenment.
games.
And so if artists are going to be business people and keep the creative spirit that comes from making art, they're going to need to play the game of business, not play the war of business. They're going to lose every time.
Lose the battle to win the war.
Yeah, because they're coming into the
Then
game
you can
late.
always abstract it down a level. You know, you can turn any war into a battle, and there's always a bigger war you can keep finding.
But there's only certain, and the beautiful thing about games is that there's only specific games you can play. Monopoly is a very specific game, and you know the win condition. Chess is a very specific game, and you know the win condition. The only reason I push against chess is not even that it didn't work, but that it will probably be exhausting to be playing against whoever that invisible opponent is. Whereas there is a truly almost purely aesthetic experience of Go, even though Go is a competitive game, there is a stronger culture inside that gameplay of, oh, I don't want to win, I want to play a beautiful game. You can play Go and lose every single game and not feel that same defeat experience that chess players feel, because there is a more aesthetic record of the flow of pieces than chess, which has more of a computational binary mode. And again, both of them work. The idea being is that, like, even in chess, every one of those moves costs emotional energy. Like, the level that I'm trying to make this game is like, to do anything is to either unconsciously be on the wave of your own emotion or to have consciously alchemized it to decide even that rook to b4 is the right move. And anyone who has mastered that game, that meta game, is going to play all other games better, including doing business, is my proposition. Who knows if I'm fucking right? I have to play the game to find out. I have to get on the surfboard and go out into the ocean and hopefully not get pulled in by the riptide and killed to even find out.
This reminds me of a poem that I like a lot by the former U.S. poet laureate Joy Harjo. It's called "This Morning I Pray for My Enemies." And whom do I call my enemy? An enemy must be worthy of engagement. I turn in the direction of the sun and keep walking. It's the heart that asks the question, not my furious mind. The heart is the smaller cousin of the sun. It sees and knows everything. It hears the gnashing even as it hears the blessing. The door to the mind should only open from the heart. An enemy who gets in risks the danger of becoming a friend.
I believe that. I will say I've been writing in the stupid Wendell Court book, like, my literary influences. Like, I've gone full branding mode where I'm like, okay, here's like the technologies, here's the nonfiction, here's the fiction, here's the shows, here's the stuff. The one that I left out is the one that I have to put on because you just gave me that poem. Thank you. I'm furious. Ender's Game.
I
Ender's Game. Straight up.
love making
Ender's
you
Game
furious.
says straight up, to defeat your enemy, you must understand them, but in understanding them, you love them. At the exact moment you love them and achieve that purposeful
They're
understanding,
not enemies.
him.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, who, like, a measure of a man is who he chooses to be their enemy. So again, like I said, gentle push on the chess metaphor. The question of who you're playing again becomes important. In my world, I don't care as much. My game is to play the best game that I can do. So right now, it might be you. Why? Because it's the most interesting push hands game to play right now. But if you're playing chess and I'm playing Go, you may be like, holy shit, when is my enemy now? Holy fuck. I was like, nah, you were just there. You were just there on Monday.
Yeah, and like this gets in a lot to the meaning of winning versus losing, what the stakes are. I'm reminded very strongly of Finite and Infinite Games by James Carse, and is the purpose to win or is the purpose to keep playing? Yes. And do we play to win or do we play to have fun? And I think I like what you said about, the war of business versus the fun of business, right? Business can be fun.
Yeah.
But
You think there
this,
are war games. Like the chess metaphor hits because it is a game that is a war, but it has enough of the game that if you've got enough emotional intelligence, you'll recognize, oh shit, this is just a game. But if you're hustling in Central Park, you may have raised the stake of the game such that it stops being playful. And that's the dangerous spot. If your life is on the line in this game, you're going to play it more like a war than you're going to play it like a game. But to make something playful is to throw away your life. It is to forget yourself. I've had this conversation with people where I'm like, the insane thing you have to do to make this game fun is to remove the stakes, and to remove the stakes is to remove yourself from it. And unfortunately, you want to be the one who wins the game, but unfortunately, you're going to be the one that makes the game make you
you
feel.
want to both win and enjoy the pleasure of playing a no stakes game. Which one are you going to choose?
Yep. And that's the fucking game.
Ooh. Well,
That's
that's
the
it
one.
brings us to like Leonard Cohen, right? Beautiful losers,
Yep.
right? This idea of being a loser. And
It's the flip we talked about earlier.
that's so
It's the
good.
difference between knowing that you circumstances are you making $20 an hour and identifying as a $25 an hour worker. Someone who has lost is not a loser.
Mm.
In fact, anyone who's won anything is just like, yeah, how many losses do you get to that win? Yeah, bell curve amount. Anyone who's got that binary identity thinking is any loss has now made me a loser. And I have to use fear to move away from being a loser instead of using anger to move towards meaningful conflicts, of which art is a bunch of meaningful conflicts
Mm.
with yourself and the world. Because let's be real, the world simultaneously wants your art and is actively trying to stay itself. If you make art on it, you have to fight the materials who previously were like, I'd really rather just be a crayon right now, and now I'm a weird art sculpture. Like, you're gonna have to spend energy to shift my beingness almost animistically from components to whole.
Mm. From components to whole. I like art as a place where individual moves try to get along. I mean, I very much like baseball as a metaphor and as a comparison to painting. Say
Mm.
it's choices to be made within an organized medium, right? The choices you have at each little step are limited, right? Whereas in a canvas, you can go as fast as you want. It can be over as soon as you want.
Mm.
I mean, it gets to this. I think it's attributed to Da Vinci. You know, a work of art is never finished, only abandoned.
Cool.
Set, finite games end.
Yeah, I want to keep
Um,
it the baseball one though, because I want to tie it to the Confucius thing of, because I think you're absolutely right. As someone who has painted, as someone who has played baseball, and as someone who has specifically appreciated literary baseball as a metaphor about art itself, which is few people do it. It's usually for very obvious reasons, incredibly American, but sometimes British people and Japanese people will do it. It's wild. The ritual, every painting can have some rituals to it, and we might call that your style, but baseball is a fixed ritual that creates amazing moments. Like, it's the same fucking game. Like, they gotta throw this many pitches, they gotta do this stuff, and yet it's never the same game. Oh, do we lose you again? Well, that's probably a good sign. Or that's probably a sign. Zip, zip, zip. Womp womp. The robots are like, wrap it up. You're cooking with too much hot fire. That's literally, yeah, that's what it
and
is.
there we go. And now I'm unmuted. Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, that idea of, and this is the beauty of games, this is why I'm all in on games, is the structure, the repeatable structure
Yeah. Yeah.
that allows synchronicities to happen. D&D,
Mm.
all right, we got the structure, we got move order, we got these character sheets, and yet you cannot know what the fuck is going to happen, but you do know there are going to be dice rolls, there is going to be a character sheet, there is this sort of like move. And the fear that I think artists have is that they do too much structure, something bad's going to happen. And any
Mm.
game designer is going to be like, that is literally the fucking point, is to create the structure to make
Mm.
sort of art emerges. But it's so new that we have a longer history of art doing than we have game making. So the game makers see themselves.
Mm. Interesting. The history of game making. Um, I mean, it reminds me of soccer and why Leo Messi is so good. And, kids growing up in certain Spanish speaking countries, for example, and they just grow up with a soccer ball at their feet and they learn how to walk and they learn how to play football sort of simultaneously. Yeah, games that reminds me of like initiation ceremonies and manhood, right? We were talking about fatherhood earlier. The game of fatherhood is an interesting one. We could talk to some of our peers about that, of like how to gamify growing up. I mean, again, if we break things down into discrete steps, emotional units, say, I mean, training a baseball player is a math problem. How to build the different skills, right? It's just like leveling up in any like RPG. Like, me in Diablo 2, you're building a character, you're saying, okay, I'm gonna be a fire sorceress, and you go like, how to, you rush to level 90, and then you get to pick all your attributes one by one, and it's like, you can do that, but it ends up being, you have to begin with the end in mind and say, what feelings do I want to have? How do I want to live?
Well, and
Because
then
in this,
also in that example, games will stack on each other. They'll stack on each other infinitely. And there's a post hoc, I won't even call it a fallacy, but even though games get invented in a historical moment, in the same way that feminists will then do feminist theory for everything that happens, it is created in this moment, but suddenly we can now recognize things that previously weren't games as games. That's why I wanted to make the Confucian ritual and the game thing. Like, Confucius was not playing a game, but he did recognize that something about strategic fixed patterns mattered. And the second that we invent game, we can look back and go, oh, okay, I get it. Confucius was very serious about his rights, but now we can do them playfully. We can do the healthy pro social structures, and now that we've yoked them to play and creativity, we can do them and take away their stakes. Things that were previously serious, if you gamify them, it is not to actually break them down to the components. Half the stuff is already broken down to its components anyway. It's to alchemize it with play. That's the main benefit of gamification. Many people gamify to reproduce the results versus like, no, you gamify to make it fun. You gamify it so that you can pay people on the thing that they're doing all this shit for in the first place up front, so that they actually make the thing down the line. It preserves quitting is by having it fun. It's just like, you'll have fun. If you're having fun, losing doesn't suck. If you're not having fun and then you lose, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen.
reminds me of the Oscar Wilde quote: "The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about."
Fucking A, goddamn wild. I'm at that edge right now where I'm sitting on something where I'm like, I can't do this. I really wanted to succeed at my business by having it be surreptitious, to be like a weird ninja consultant that people brought in to do stuff and then people run with it. It turns out the game that is emerging for me, maybe that my soul cooked up for me, says, no, you're going to have to be a face. You're going to have to be seen. Your identity is going to have to be on purpose put on something and played with. And so either you have to construct a false self that you love to use as a ventriloquist dummy, which is fine.
Yeah.
You got to make sure that that emotional constitution that you keep swinging around like that matters is actually worth a damn.
And I end up, or at least in this season of, I've ended up realizing that that's never the way it turns out. Like that, like making yourself into this dream character, that's going to be the unpaid stuff. The real paid stuff is being your real self and learning to serve a real need right now in a way less complicated, less abstract way than you think it's going to go. Right? It's not going to go that way.
Copy this and just read the preface, because as allergic as I saw to you at the beginning, you just verbatim quoted like his whole thing with consultancy, which was getting paid to show and model authentic relating with people.
Yeah. Well, I think you can start
with the right expertise.
Well, you start rather than modeling it, you actually just do it.
No, that's what like in this particular example, modeling it isn't you being separate from it, is you doing it. They're going to treat it like a model until they realize that you're just doing it. Like that disillusionment is baked in. Like they're not going to believe you, and any amount of energy you spend trying to convince them is going to make them less convinced. You just do it. But here's the thing, you have to do it knowing that you're getting that result. I do think that there's a lot of authenticity people who will then close their eyes to be authentic. And I'm like, nope, you have to be and keep your eyes open. Watch everyone look at you like you're not being authentic or that you're too good to be true, that whatever. And you have to then authentically respond to that.
Some people think that true authenticity and kindness and generosity is like stooping, right? Like since like they're above sincerity at this ironic distance of, oh, like I'll talk about sincerity as a consultant, but I won't actually do it. And that's where you see them reveal that they are liars and cheats and thieves.
Here's the thing, and this is, I think, the thing that really rattles, and maybe it's you, I know it rattles me, is that people will pay to be lied to. No, straight up, that's the issue, is that like, oh, well, we would think that the shysters would then be shown as the shysters. Like, no, they feel more comforted hiring a shyster because then they could have had the shot to maybe get the problem solved, to then find out that they paid a shyster, to then galvanize whatever they had decided to do in the first place. That's why that sucks, but it's also why people keep paying into it. But there still is work of people showing up authentically, doing dope stuff, and it's amazing. But there is this paradox that I've dealt with, which is to do that work well is to say no a bunch more times than yes. It's to become actually a master of who is safe and generative for you to be authentic next to. Like, there's a lot of inner work that goes into doing that job, right? And for the most part, you do end up still staying pretty invisible, or you end up hanging around enough companies that you decide, actually, I'm tired of being the wise person for hire. I want to start my own company, and now I've got to buy my own consultants. And so there is this ephemerality to it where you're either like a sage forever and basically only visible to those who are actually visible, or you're realizing, oh, actually, I've made enough money that I can just do a business, and now I'm just one of those visible people not doing the thing. And that, from an artist standpoint, I think is what makes it hard. Like, business people are like, well, the money's coming in, right? I don't give a shit. The artists go, I'm having an existential issue because the entire point of half of my art was to be seen, but the skillfulness of this is to not. And so for those people, I'll just be like, great, don't work 40-hour weeks. Build your shit out of 10 hours so you can spend the rest of the time to be seen the way you want to be seen. But if you build it out most of your time, that math don't math.
You remind me of why companies hire ad agencies is it gives them someone to fire and it gives them someone to blame. Right. This is the whole notion of bringing consultants who aren't employees, right? Their skin is not in the game. They aren't getting a salary on this team. They aren't stuck with this team. You bring them in to diagnose your problems, and then you can yell at them when the problems don't get solved, right? You bring in the consultant almost as like a voodoo doll or a punching bag, or a crash test dummy to absorb the flame, the irreconcilable conflicts within the organization that you can then project onto the consultants. And that's a useful thing. Now, I mean, that's just, in a sense, like what the artist is, right? They are walking wallpaper for the viewer's projections. And in that act of projection, we clear the space out so we can then have a next authentic reaction, right? It's all about tomorrow. It's all about, I can clear out this anger and I can look at it through that David White lens of, wow, this reaction I'm having, right? Just like our, I wouldn't call it a misunderstanding, but we were both playing notes at the same time and I wasn't listening and I had an unvoiced thought. It's like that clears the space. You've made that mistake. You've taken that mistake off the board, right? And then to go back, there's like, oh, is there a game designer above, like directing this jazz session? It's like it takes moves off the board so you can do new next things, which sort of relates to this phrase I like of like, some people make the world go around, some people make the world go forward, and like artists are ones who make the world go forward. People who have predictable jobs, and it's like, oh, back on Monday doing the thing. Even if as a writer and a singer, well, I'll say more as a writer, like I sit down to the desk, but I also don't know what's going to come out. I will reliably get 2 pages or 3. I don't know what it's going to be. So that's the reliability is in the volume, not the content.
Yep. I mean, that's what Pressfield is about. My only critique with Pressfield is love War of Art, make it a war game of art. That's it. That's my only shift, is just he is signing people up basically to say, eat shit every day. And I'm like, hey, you can have fun eating shit. That's my only note.
It would be fun for you and me to write the piece of art.
The piece of art, or the peaceful war of art?
I would say the
I mean,
PEACE of
yes,
art, which is also funny because piece of art,
right. I mean, I'll be
PEPIE,
completely real. If this ever gets out in front of people, I know what I'm headed towards. I'm writing the game of art.
game of art.
If it's the mastering of system, mastering game of life, but mastering game of life is me just saying art life is a work of art. Here's how to play a story game with your art. Cool.
You,
Mastering game of friendship, mastering the game of religion. Eventually, I'll be able to write with my full chest, mastering the game of art, and then realize that every step that got people to that space had already been laid and had already been a fractal version of mastering the game of art, mastering the game of creativity. I just still feel a little sheepish because I feel like I want to have a lot more pots on the shelf before I say that I'm a master of creativity. There is like a part of me that's like,
I have called myself a master of creativity.
right? And good on you. You're a little bit more audacious than me, but I'm like, I should have at least like a gallery of stuff before I say it. Oh, I've mastered this. Even though like the thing that has made me creative came to me, I didn't choose it. I was almost certainly 9 years old, and I've been doing riffs on that ever since. Like, I'm a master because I've been doing it for 10,000 hours, but I'm not a master in the sense that I have not mastered the performative role called master by society in a way where I could be validated by them. And I could still keep opting out of that. But if I do want to, for whatever reason, have an experience and create an experience of people looking at me in mastery, accepting it, doing it without me needing to have my ego torn apart, and I can put myself on a billboard for the sake of making sure that these technologies get to people and can make a game towards getting there that is as fun as the doing would be, yeah, I'll do it. I will not compromise on any of those. And that is probably where my most artistic self is, which is, oh, I'll die trying to do that, but I won't shift it. I won't make it uh apprenticing to the game of art. I'm like, no, that's not
Well,
gonna
it's you remind me of something. I don't know if you've ever met this guy online, sort of in teapot space, Drew Shorno.
be.
He wrote about his clown school experience in a post called "The Game of You." Because if
Ooh.
you're going to write about the game of art, it's really about the game of you, which is what parts are you bringing up and kind of booting up at different times. I like the idea of like playing the organ as like an analogy, like opening the pipes up, right? That's why I keep, Franz Kafka says keep the keyhole clean, right? I like the idea of, like, you got to keep all the pipes clean, right? Different colors, different sounds, different tones, all the different emotions, all the different memories you have,
You gotta
you know,
treat your material well.
yeah. And you gotta to be, and I heard almost like a real like master in a discipline has made the tools for the tools. It's like you've made your own cleaning instruments for your own stuff. Not only have you made your own machines, but you've made cleaning tools for your machines that you've made. So you've made the whole I mean, talk about being a full stack engineer of whatever you do. Like, you've mastered the emotional state it takes to make the stuff. You've, either built the workshop or you've brought in enough revenue to rent the workshop. You've filled the workshop. You write the marketing materials. You are the front man for that thing. Um,
And or I think this is a big one. You've mastered the community skills that would make it so you do not have to master the stuff you don't care about. That's a really big one. That's
yes,
mastering the
yes.
art is after friendship and relationship
That, yeah, I
and
mean, like,
all.
that's also the game of you, because that's about asking for help, which
Yep.
is as humiliating as it gets, right? You and I have both had resistance to this. We could, both be much wealthier than we are, right? If we could ask for help effectively. And you
Yep.
have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to stake your heart to your vision, put it out there, and let people see it and say no and ignore it. And getting good, the factory job of that, of sell yourself, do your best idea right now and go live with it all the time. People who keep pushing, like, eventually you're gonna be playing the right notes.
Yep. But only if that game is either fun in the short term or you're getting in your medium term game enough sort of like benefit. Because straight up, this is something I have to tell people. Like, I was writing the Wendell course stuff, and I was like, one of this thing is fundraising. And if your funders are fun people who you would like to talk to, even if they didn't pay you,
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
fine. If they're not, then you're gonna do it at distance, you're gonna do all this stuff. But like even that mechanism is like, okay, great. If you find fun tinkering, find a way to tinker with your AI automated sales call system and do that shit. And that's your fundraising wing. If you like talking to people, make sure your calendar is open enough that you can have those conversations, do the stuff. Once you've decided the job needs to get done, which itself needs to be a fun job, that's a big difficulty for people. There's a lot of people who are like, it is not fun to see how many pieces could be in this Lego set. And I'm like, great, then you're not going to build the thing. So long as you've got that block and can overcome that, or find the person who loves doing that, that's going to be the thing that makes the whole game unfun. And so it's like, if you can open your eyes in a non-self-abusive way, great. Now you can go, oh, I don't like doing the protection. Let me go ally with the protection person. But that means, oh, now I have to spin up my make friends game. Oh shit, my make friends game is whack. And so that's why this has this long, crazy scope, is that eventually, like, these games do, even as they are different and self-created, they do have like an order to them. Like if you don't like yourself, you're not going to make friends particularly well. You might still have friends, but you're playing a larger belonging game of let's make sure that everyone in the community can contribute, and there's like a basic shallow level of friendship that'll do that. But if you actually like yourself, you'll know how to make the friends that you need to deal with. If you have the friends that you need to deal with, you know the people that you're going to actually partner with or be in deep romantic relationship with. Once you've got all your needs met, you'll actually have resources to be an ally to people who are like you, to do the thing, to then actually go, hey, I've got enough resources and connections that I can go build a whole world. And in building a whole world, that's when you're actually building art. You don't just build the art, you are subconsciously building the entire context where the art could even emerge. And most artists just forget that they're doing that, and everything about the world is accidental. And I'm like,
you think you're building it, but really you're just tuning into it. You're discovering it's already there, right? That's like the surprise of the grace of God, is realizing, oh wow, all I need to do is say amen. Because all of a sudden the venues are there and they're staffed with great people, right? You think you need to do it all yourself, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, it's already here. Then you spend the second half of your life mad at God for being so damn good. It's like, damn you, how are you so good?
I don't want to take this away, but I do want to situate this as part of a whole. I'm going to call that, let's make up an archetype right now because it's something I'm working on. That's the diviner's artist strategy. There is an artificer's artist strategy where you get to willfully just be the creator. You get to just do it, where it's like, no, 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 it's the little red hen. I did plant the wheat. I did till the field. I did do the stuff. I did that. The artificer loses the magic and the wonder, but they get to hold the triumph and the power. The diviner loses the triumph and the power, but they get to keep the wonder. And the game is, if you can pay yourself in wonder and that's what you're actually doing it for, be a fucking diviner. Don't artifice. That's gonna be so stressful for you. If you're an artificer, stop trying to seek wonder, or part-time seek wonder in a way that's not gonna fuck up your artifice.
Yeah. Wonder artifice fit is a funny way to say that.
I think there's more than these two. Those are just the ones that came up right now.
Yeah.
There's the caretakers who actually don't make art. When you look at their space, you're like, you have created this space that produces, like the preschool teacher energy. They're not going to see themselves as creative, but I'm like, the ability to have these assholes not die takes this type of creativity and attunement that will never be appreciated because they're dumb and can't see anything, and yet is still an art. It's still taking that creativity. Your job is to recognize that that's happening and pay yourself in whatever benefits that emerge from see teachers that do that. I'm dating a teacher right now who, like, they're getting paid right now from connections they made 10 years ago, because now their students are not only their peers but are now peers who are giving them opportunities. Educators just like, yeah, if you're gonna be educator as artists, you have a long tail success of payment.
It's a long game because you make friends. And
it's the same with parenting. Part of parenting is you're not going to find out if you do what you did for 30 years.
Right.
So the game itself has to be fun until you realize when the game begins.
That's fucking good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. And eventually there's just like no stress.
The character creation parenting is 18 years long, and then you get to start fucking playing it. But if you hated being in the character creation screen, how the hell are you going to enjoy the fucking actual game?
Well, you have to be able to forget. Being able to forget is really important, and being able to see, you know, and this is what poetry teaches, right? Poetry is a way of seeing the world for the first time. And I feel like, you know, again, psychedelics helped me get there, but I think I've cultivated it now on my own of this constant sense of being new and making it new. And it goes back to Miles Davis. It's like, you know, to be a creator is to just jump in the river of change and never try to get out. You realize you don't need a life preserver if you can go with the flow and truly not give a fuck and truly be practice detachment. If you can do that, you'll always find more than what you've attached yourself to and limited to, right? I'll also quote Thomas Merton, the greatest human temptation is to settle for too little.
Yep.
That's why letting go is so fun, because you get to believe, you get to reinvent your faith all over again. And I think that's what people actually want to pay to see when it comes to musicians and artists, is they want to see someone believe in themselves. Because that's really the only thing that we can do is help others, to inspire people and to make them find it in themselves to change and to find their way to that same river of change, and to jump in headlong and say, I can't engineer my happiness, because that involves foreseeing your emotions. And then you're living for tomorrow and you never get to tomorrow.
I will still always push on that. Again, I cannot stress enough. You can engineer your happiness. It will make you go insane. That's my caveat. You can do it. The damage you will do to your self-concept to know that happiness isn't coming from inside of you. I think that's the unkindness that we do to people when there are positive psychologists that are like, you can do it. I'm like, you're leaving out the part of the utter like self-dissolution that you will have to do. There is a part of you that absolutely loves being unhappy. If you choose happiness every day, you are doing psychic damage to a part of you. You have to like pursue a certain type of temporary sadism to be as happy as you want to be. They leave that part out. I, having done it and pursued it myself, there are parts that react vociferously to me being like, I don't like this. Oh, I know how to spin up happiness, and I feel the resistance from like, no, I literally know it's a step-by-step process. I've been spending my entire life to do it. It's watch Star Wars, get my dick sucked, drink tea. Like, those are all accessible. What would stop me from doing this? The part of me that goes, I absolutely do not want that. I do not want to be happy right now. I do not like the idea that you could stop my emotional expression from happening just by making a choice. And I'm like, then either align with it or get stronger, my guy. Like, to me is that's the choice now, where it's like when I like, so the reason I didn't push fully away from the chessboard is I know it's me that's on the other side of the chessboard. It's very specific, a part of me that is it's the part of me that's just like, no, we have to be weak and barely destroyed and wretched so that people will connect with us. And I'm like, that's parents to connect with us. You're using an old strategy because that's what they had to do. I want to be connected with because I was connected to myself, balled out, did shit, and showed people that you can just Konami code happiness if you want. The if you want part is really where it's happening.
If you want, yeah.
You don't have to. I tell people this all the time. It's one of the cards you can play. Like, that's why I like it as a game. It's why I like it as cards. Final Infinite Games hits it hard where it says if you have to play, you can't play. But when people do these I can't choose happiness, that's the same as saying I can't play at happiness.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to wring out, and this is where we should dial in VisaCon. It's like I've had to wring out all coercion from things, right? It's how I see myself as a teacher, and why I've resisted academia is like I want people coming to me and my stuff because they want to. I need to wring out all coercion and all obvious reward. So I want readers to come for the vibe. So I need to write that vibe from scratch. And Bruce Springsteen said something really insightful. It says it takes a long time to build an audience because it takes a consistency of thought over a long period of time. Right? I've very much hammered out the temper, right? I like this language of like the forge. I've hammered out this temperament of what it is to follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. Is this simultaneous wonder, disdain, curiosities, refusal for acceptance. It's a refusal of complacency and sameness. It's this feral insistence on finding that river of change, because actually giving everything up, poverty in a way is freedom. Losing all hope is freedom. And I just believe in that so much.
On this one, because I want to go back to the Springsteen quote, because I do want to pivot it and loop it back around to the whole time thing. And also, I'm at time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time, but a lot of time changes at this sort of quantum relativistic realm. A lot of time can be moved to a lot of emotional intensity. It takes a long time to build an audience, which is really to say it takes a lot of emotional intensity to build an audience. and you can fungibly shift that
Smart.
if you're willing to destroy the people you care about. There's a kindness. I'm great. I'm amazing. I have huge impact. It's not nice for me to go to my mom, diagnose her like deepest trauma, poke a finger right in there and heal her because she will scream like I broke her back because I did. Or I can slowly over time earn the trust, do the thing, yada da, ba ba ba, da 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 da, and then win her over to my side. Both are available, and the game player says it's not a game until you have two choices, and the choice can't be do it, not do it. It's do it this way or do it this way. The first level of the game is do it, not do it. The second level of the game of this way or this way. Or the obvious third synthesis version is play the piano with both hands at the same time. Say, all right, let's see which one wins. Let's see which one actually gets us. The long version
wins
of showing up,
again.
The constant ratcheting up of emotional intensity, and we'll see which one wins. Again, they're both connected to me, so I win no matter what. And that's the best game. That's why I love the Dungeon Master thing. I look people in the face because they'll forget, but sometimes it'll happen. Basically, anytime that I watch players of mine strategize for more than 10 minutes, I will step in and be like, you guys know I can hear you. This is not you defeating me game. This is us emerging a fucking dope story. And you getting your ass handed to me occasionally is gonna be part of it. Anything you come up with, I'm gonna just raise the stakes because the story's going to have come from that connection. Anytime they get lost in that, I'm like, you don't know what game you're playing. You've forgotten, because if you knew, you would never try and engineer your way away from these obstacles.
Whew. That is a jazz session.
Take it to the bridge. Take it to the A train. Love a good what do they call it? That's a bump. That's a bumper.
Outro? Bumper.
Yeah, it's great. Hot dog.
Nice, dude.
Good shit. I do appreciate that you write stuff down. Like, my jazz is very mandala art, and that's something I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
Do it, record it, send it off to someone who likes chopping up the pieces, and then go about your business. So I'm in appreciation not just of the fun, but the fact that like literally bits of myself now are in the internet that would not have been if I had to like set up a thing like that. So
I mean, like this is a fine 2 hours to throw up there. I mean, I don't know who's got the intelligence to choose what to keep in and take out. I mean,
well, I'll say this: the goal has the intelligence. I'll send you the file. I'll transcribe it, and my goal is going to pull certain things out.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Well, I gotta get a piss, and I'm gonna go get some more shirtless baseball out here in Austin. It's been 100 and something degrees for like as long as I can remember. So
it's got a little cooler in Kansas, but it's been pretty bad here too.
Yeah.
All right,
man. I love you, dude. Thanks a lot. This is a lot of fun.
Try my best to get this over. I'm almost certain, but that's part of my practice now, is to learn to not forget.
Always. All right. See ya.